Travis Taves puts a tweet and says that he was always disturbed by what was happening to the pastors and shutting down.
But he was a cabinet minister of the government that prosecuted you. How can he say that when if he really was opposed to it, he should have said something in public or resigned from cabinet. Am I right? Is it the same Travis Taves?
That's right. And more than that, he was the one that was caught breaking the same rules and regulations and their own mandates, which I had to be taken in a El Chapo, Al Capone, Escobar style takedown in the middle of the highway for my crime of inciting people to come to church and participating in a church service and officiating an illegal gathering. That's the same guy that I met about 3 weeks ago, face to face. And I said to him, listen, what you did to me is unbelievable. Can you tell me why you did this to me and why you're still persecuting me, your government? And he looked at me and he said, in the behalf of Albertans, I apologize to what happened to you. I said, but that's not good enough. You have to call a press and you have to tell them what is going on with me. The atrocity that you have implemented on me, my family, my friends, my brother David, his wife, my parents, is wrong. And he says, well, that's the thing. I cannot do that.
So I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to get one more piece of information. So this is Travis Taves, cabinet minister. Did he say this to you privately? Was this on the phone or in person? When he said, I apologize to you, there's some value there, even if it's a late apology, even if it's not sincere. Was this a private apology? Like, was anyone else there? Was this at an event? Because I would think it was a public offense to you, and there ought to be a public apology. A sneaky private apology to incur your, to assuage you personally feels like a form of deception. Where was this that he said this? When was this that he said this?
I was invited to a rodeo with my friends to Innisfil, and he was one of the government officials doing speeches. So when I saw him standing there, I just went, and he got scared. He really got scared. He thought I'm going to start yelling and screaming and maybe attack him in some way. But I just wanted to ask him that simple question. Why have you done this to me? Like, please, can you explain why? What was the reason? And that's where he kind of started to backpedal and he says, I apologize. And when I said to him, that's not good enough. Your government did this to me, and you're still doing this to me. It's not over for me. I'm still on house arrest. I'm still facing criminal charges for me just simply being pastor and feeding the poor. As you know, Ezra, I'm still facing $100,000 ticket for feeding homeless during this craziness. And then he says, well, it's before the courts and I cannot come and I cannot do anything else. And yet he's running for the leadership of UCP party as we speak right now. And then he tweets this craziness that he was always cheering for me. He was always on board, and he's very glad that the Court of Appeal did the right thing. I mean, it's insanity. It's like schizophrenia on the highest levels because it's them. And then you've got Jason Kenney meeting with the Pope, pretending he's good, altar boy, in favor of religious freedoms. And yet I'm still on house arrest facing criminal charges for nothing.
Jason Kenney once was on the side of religious freedom, but he shut down more churches and arrested more pastors using the pandemic as an excuse. He did that more than even communist China did. It's funny, you were talking about the excuse of this Tory cabinet minister for why I can't say this publicly. By the way, on Friday, I got some text messages from another Tory cabinet minister saying the same thing. Oh, Ezra, you know me, I'm always for freedom. Well, why are you telling me this in a private text? Why don't you make a public statement? Oh, well, I can't. Well, here's Jason Kenney. Here's clips of Jason Kenney while your case was before the courts. And of course, your case still is before the courts, speaking very specifically. He had no problem condemning you, accusing you of inciting violence, incredibly. Here's Jason Kenney with no compunction about condemning you while it was before the courts. Take a look at this.
Hey there, Sid Wizard with Rebel News. I'm not sure if my question would be best directed towards you, but right now, of course, you're investing in religious infrastructure. But I think many around the province have a concern that you may not be best protecting their religious freedoms, as we've seen with Pastor Artur Pawlowski. He still remains behind bars. This is well over 30 days. If you could just comment on that situation and maybe perhaps ease some concerns or just give some light to that situation.
So in Canada, we have something called the rule of law, where courts are responsible for adjudicating criminal charges against individuals, not politicians. So we have an independent judiciary. That individual, I understand, has been detained by the police because of multiple breaches of terms of release, court orders, as well as an alleged incitement to violence at the Coutts border crossing blockade. And so that individual has all of the rights of any individual under the Canadian legal system. They are presumed presumed innocent until proven guilty, of course, in our system of law. And they have a right to access to counsel. They have all of that individual or any other individual has all of the same legal rights as anybody. So this is a matter that is before the courts. As a more general comment, I would just suggest that going to a very tense, combustible situation and inciting people to be willing to die and commit acts of violence for their cause is very likely to have legal consequences. And I would suggest that, nobody is above the law. No politician, no person that calls himself a pastor is above the law. The rule of law applies equally to everybody in our system of the rule of law.
You know what? I think that Friday was a great victory for you, and I want to talk more about the case you have going on. I want to talk a little more about a few things. But let me put this to you. I mean, I was thinking about your case because you were the very first case that we decided to help during the pandemic because you were the first one to be harassed that I saw. And it's turned into such a massive case. And your lawyer, Sarah Miller, has really, and there's other lawyers too. I think that she's very bright. I mean, I haven't worked with her as closely as you have. And here's what I thought. We've probably done 100 stories about it, and we've probably done 100 emails to Albertans, and we've done videos and the court cases, and we even had billboards. I don't know if you know that, but on Highway 2 between Calgary and Edmonton, we have billboards. And here's my theory, and I'm not saying this to gloat. It's the opposite of gloating. It's why this case is important and why Albertans care about this case, even if they're not Christian, even if they disagree with you. The fact that you were jailed and hunted like some Al Capone, and I think we did 10 million impressions or views about your story. And because it was newsworthy, it was an important story. And we did emails and billboards. And when Jason Kenney had his leadership review a few months ago, he got just over 50%. And he decided that was not enough to continue, and he was correct. I think he should have left immediately, by the way.
Yeah.
It is my belief that the economy, it's on some people's mind. The handling of the pandemic in general is on some people's mind. But I think the thing that caused his own party members to feel betrayed by him was his punitive approach to you and the other churches that was unique in the Western world. I know of no other province or even country that decided to drill into churches in the way he did. And I believe that probably cost him 20% in his leadership contest poll. And that's the difference between him getting 70 or 75% support or 51% or whatever it was. I believe that he lost the premiership over his persecution of Christians. And so I look at your vindication by the Court of Appeal. I think, who are the winners? Well, you are, and the rule of law and the Charter of Rights. And your lawyer was successful, and the donors were successful. You're the biggest winner, of course. But Adam Germain was disgraced and discredited by the court, and Jason T. Kenney, his premiership was cut off, and everything he said about you was rebuked by the court. He is the biggest loser in this whole fight, and he deserves to lose because no one else in the world persecuted Christians like he did. And it's so strange coming from his background. What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.